Something I wanted to talk about is like operating agreements and partnership agreements and those types of things. Look, attorneys write operating agreements and they're about this thick. Frankly, I've read through many of them. I don't understand hardly a word in them. You know, I think there's in operating agreements there's certain operative language. Let's say it's an LLC and you have two partners. There ought to be a lot of personal language in terms of how you're going to treat each other, your relationship, how you're going to resolve disputes. What is your what's the distribution of profits and losses going to look like? You know, what is your exit strategy? What if a partner dies? I mean, you may love your partner, but you don't necessarily want to be in partnership with his children, you know, or with his spouse, you see? And oftentimes, attorneys will write, you know, will file the right documents with the Corporation Commission, to run off an operating agreement, put a few phrases in there about what type of business you're going to do, and that's it. And it's not enough. And I think they should have integrity agreements, non-disparity agreements. I think it should encourage the parties to have, if they have a dispute, to have open dialogue, mediation, binding arbitration, as opposed to lawsuits. But I'll tell you what I really think about operating agreements and partnership agreements. If anybody in here, well, about 9 of every 10 businesses that I become associated, that I represent people with, were partnerships that began happy, and 9 out of 10 are dissolving. People who have been through a divorce know what it's like. If you have, in a divorce, you have one spouse. In a partnership or an LLC, you may have 2, 3, or 4 what are like spouses. And it can be a nightmare dealing with all of them and their attorneys. I think operating agreements ought to look like prenuptial agreements. You know, what do prenuptial agreements do? They say, hey, look, we're going to live happily ever after, but if we don't, here's how we're going to divide up the property. Here's how we're going to go our separate ways. We're not going to hire lawyers and go to trial and have disputes. It's all outlined in our prenuptial agreement. I think a good operating agreement, a partnership agreement, a contract ought to say, here's what happens if this business doesn't work out, you see, and avoid litigation. It's too many lawyers will get involved, they'll take all the money, absorb all the assets, and then settle the case.